The forced cheer of my 28th birthday dinner was already wearing thin, like the cheap napkins Jackson insisted on buying for casual family gatherings. He loved playing the generous host, especially when my family was around. My husband, Jackson Burton, was 34, and he had this way of charming everyone in the room, making them believe he was the best thing that ever happened to me. And for years I'd let them believe it, let him believe it. My sister, Maria, who was 31, sat across from me, her husband Eric nodding along to whatever grand pronouncement Jackson was making about his latest business venture. My mum, Nicole, 55, kept shooting me these pointed looks, as if reminding me how lucky I was. Even my younger brother Dwayne, 24, usually my quiet ally, seemed lost in his plate. My cousin Amber was there too, mostly scrolling on her phone. "So, Samara, still doing those little temp jobs?" Jackson asked, a smile plastered on his face, but his eyes held that familiar glint of condescension. He knew I hated him calling them little. They were my lifeline, my secret stash of independence. Every dollar I earned from graphic design gigs or data entry, I squirreled away into an account he didn't know about. It was slow, painfully slow, but it was mine. I managed a tight smile. Just keeping busy. He chuckled, a sound that always grated on my nerves. "Busy is good, honey, but really, why would Sam need school when she's got me? I mean, I provide everything, right?" He gestured around our perfectly manicured dining room, the one he'd decorated without any input from me. My mom and Maria nodded approvingly. Eric even clapped him on the shoulder. The anger simmered, hot and familiar, just beneath my skin. They saw the successful businessman, the charming provider. I saw the man who had systematically dismantled every dream I'd ever voiced, especially my long-held ambition to go to Yale. He'd made me feel foolish for even wanting it, for wanting anything beyond the gilded cage he'd built. After everyone finally left, the silence in the house was deafening. I was clearing the last of the dishes when I heard the mail slot clink, just junk probably. But then I saw it, a thick, cream-coloured envelope tucked beneath a pizza flyer. It had a familiar crest, a name I'd only dared to whisper in my dreams, Yale University. My breath hitched. It was here. I ripped open the Yale envelope, my hands trembling. "Congratulations, Samara Kent Burton." The words blurred, but the meaning was crystal clear. I'd done it. After years of Jackson's dismissive remarks, of him telling me I wasn't cut out for that kind of pressure, I'd been accepted. A quiet, triumphant sob escaped me. The first person I called was Sierra. She was 29, my closest friend since college, and the only one who truly understood the suffocating weight of my marriage. "I got in," I whispered, tears finally streaming down my face. "Samara, oh my God, Samara, that's incredible." Her voice was a balm, a surge of pure, unadulterated joy that I hadn't felt in years. We talked for an hour, planning imaginary futures, dissecting course catalogues. It was a brief, blissful escape. I folded the letter carefully, tucking it deep inside a rarely used drawer in my nightstand, under a pile of old scarves. It felt like a precious, fragile secret, too vulnerable to exist anywhere else. A few days later, the fragile piece shattered. I came home from a temp job to find Jackson in our bedroom, his face a mask of furious disbelief, shredded pieces of cream-coloured paper scattered on the floor around him. My heart plummeted. He must have gone through my things. Of course he had. "What is this, Samara?" he snarled, holding up a jagged piece with the Yale crest. "Yale! Are you insane? After everything I've given you, everything we have, you're going to run off to some dusty campus like a naive college kid." He tore the remaining pieces in his hand, his eyes blazing. "Ungrateful, that's what you are, completely ungrateful." He didn't even wait for my response. I heard him storm out, and moments later, his voice, loud and indignant, on the phone in the living room. He was calling Maria, then my mom, Nicole. I could almost hear him spinning his narrative. Samara's acting out. She's neglecting our marriage. She's being selfish. My hands shook as I knelt, trying to gather the confetti of my dreams. I needed to see the full letter, even in pieces. He must have done it in his study, where he usually handled papers. I walked into his study, my stomach churning. The desk was a mess, as usual, no letter pieces. But then tucked under a stack of old invoices I saw it. A bank statement, not from our joint account. The name on it was just Jackson Burton, and the balance. It was far too high for an account I didn't know about. A cold dread, sharper than any anger, began to settle in. 2 days later, the intervention was staged. Jackson had clearly done a masterful job of painting me as the villain. Maria, Eric, and my mom, Nicole, sat stiffly on our living room couch, their faces a mixture of concern and disapproval. Jackson, ever the picture of injured virtue, sat beside me, occasionally patting my knee with a show of false comfort. "Samara," my mom started, her voice heavy with disappointment, "Jackson told us about this Yale business. Honey, you have a wonderful life here, a beautiful home, a loving husband. Why would you throw that away?" Maria chimed in. "Yeah, Sam, it just seems impulsive. Jackson's right. You're being ungrateful. He works so hard for you." I looked at their faces, at the familiar expressions of judgment. The anger that had been simmering for years finally boiled over. "Ungrateful, impulsive. Do you know how long I've wanted this? Do you know how many times I've brought up going back to school, and how many times Jackson has laughed it off, told me it was a waste of time, a silly dream?" My voice cracked, but I pushed through. "He didn't just tell you about Yale. He found my acceptance letter, the one I'd been working towards in secret for years, and he tore it to pieces, right in front of me." The room went silent. Maria's eyes widened, a flicker of doubt crossing her face. My mum just looked away, uncomfortable. Jackson cleared his throat. "Samara, you're exaggerating. I was upset, yes, but it was out of concern for Ace, concern?" I scoffed, ignoring him. "You manipulate everyone, Jackson. You tell them what they want to hear, and you," I looked at my family, "you just believe him, every time. You never once asked me what I wanted." Maria shifted, her gaze meeting mine. For a moment, I saw the protective older sister I remembered, before Jackson had woven his spell. "He tore it up," she repeated, her voice softer. That night, after everyone left, I was on the phone with Sierra. I told her about the hidden bank statement. "I don't know what it is, Sierra, but it felt wrong. Like he's hiding something big." "Send me the details you saw," she said, her voice sharp with focus. Sierra was a whiz with anything digital. "I'll see what I can dig up. If he's got a secret account, it's probably not for anything good." A day later, my phone buzzed. It was Sierra. "Samara, you're not going to believe this. I traced that account. It's not just a secret savings. It looks like he's been siphoning money, a lot of it, from your joint funds. I'm seeing transfers totaling $147,800. Only Jackson controls it. This isn't just about Yale, Sam. This is something else entirely." My stomach dropped. Embezzlement. That was a whole different ballgame. The news from Sierra felt like a punch to the gut, then a jolt of pure adrenaline. $147,800. Not just controlling, but actively siphoning. This wasn't just about my dreams anymore. It was about his deception, his outright theft. The anger that had simmered for years now solidified into cold, hard resolve. I wasn't just leaving Jackson, I was taking him down. My first call was to Talia Kennedy. Sierra had given me her number, describing her as a sharp, no-nonsense family lawyer, 42 years old, known for handling high-net-worth divorces with a focus on financial complexities. I explained everything concisely, calmly. The Yale letter, his rage, the hidden account, Sierra's findings. Talia listened patiently, "Samara," she said, her voice firm, "this is serious. We need concrete evidence. Every bank statement, every email, anything that links him to this account and proves he's been moving funds without your knowledge. And we need to move fast to freeze those assets before he can empty them." That night, I started my new mission. My temp jobs suddenly felt like training for this. I became a ghost in my own home, moving silently, documenting everything. I found more statements, transaction logs, even a few cryptic emails that hinted at other dealings. I scanned everything, sending it all to Talia and Sierra. Sierra, with her tech wizardry, was already building a comprehensive digital file. A few days into my stealth operation, my younger brother Dwayne texted me, "Can we talk? Alone?" We met for coffee the next morning, away from Jackson's watchful eye. Dwayne, usually so quiet, looked unusually serious. "Samara," he began, lowering his voice, "I overheard Jackson talking on the phone a few weeks ago. He was in his study and he thought I was out. He was boasting about how he'd make Samara disappear, divorce or not. He said something about making sure you'd never get a dime and that he had people who'd make sure you stayed in line." A chill ran down my spine. "People?" Dwayne nodded. "I don't know who, but it sounded threatening. Like he wasn't just talking about legal stuff." His words only hardened my resolve. This wasn't just a divorce, it was a battle. Talia, working quickly, had already initiated the process to freeze the assets in that hidden account, citing suspicious activity. The legal wheels were turning, the emotional intensity mounted with every document I found, every conversation I recorded on my phone. The house, once my gilded cage, now felt like a war zone. I was ready. I had my evidence, my lawyer, my escape route. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Jackson. I hadn't seen him since that morning. "Come home before you regret it." It wasn't a question. It was a threat. The text from Jackson chilled me, but it also hardened my resolve. No more regrets. I was done asking permission. I waited until I knew he'd be home, then walked through the front door, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. My phone, set to record, was tucked securely in my pocket. Jackson was in the living room, nursing a drink, a smug look on his face. "Finally decided to come home, Samara. Good. Let's talk about this little rebellion of yours." I walked past him, heading straight for the kitchen. "There's nothing to talk about, Jackson. I'm leaving," he scoffed, following me. "Don't be ridiculous. Where would you even go? What would you do? You have nothing without me." I turned, facing him. My voice was steady, despite the tremor in my hands. "I have more than you think, and you have less than you realize." I watched his face, waiting for the words to sink in. "I know about the account, Jackson, the one you've been siphoning money into, the $147,800. I know about the transfers from our joint funds." His smug expression evaporated, replaced by a flicker of panic, then pure, unadulterated rage. "You're lying! You don't know anything! You're just trying to cause trouble, you ungrateful bitch!" He lunged forward, not to strike, but to grab my arm, his grip like a vice. "You think you can just walk away after stealing from me? I'll ruin you. I'll make sure you have nothing. I'll make sure you regret this for the rest of your life." "You're the one who's been stealing, Jackson," I said, pulling my arm free. "And my lawyer is already filing. The assets in that account are frozen. You won't be touching a dime of it." His face contorted. "Lawyer? You think you can afford a lawyer? You think anyone will believe you over me?" He laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "I'll bury you. Legally, socially. You'll be a pariah. No one will ever trust you again." I walked calmly to the coat rack by the door, grabbed my small duffel bag, already packed with essentials, and my car keys. "I think they will, Jackson, especially when they see the evidence." He lunged again, but I was already out the door. "Get back here, that's my car." "It's our car, Jackson," I called back, opening the driver's side door. "And I'll be needing it." I slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled out of the driveway, leaving him screaming on the porch. Talia had already confirmed the legal proceedings were underway. As I sped down the street, my heart still racing, I noticed a second phone on the passenger seat. It wasn't mine. It was a burner phone, Jackson's. And the screen was still lit, showing a message from an unknown number mentioning a large sum and a deal with the partners. My victory felt cold, tinged with a new, unsettling dread. This was bigger than just us. I drove straight to Sierra's apartment, the burner phone clutched in my hand. She was already waiting, her face a mix of relief and concern. "You made it," she breathed, pulling me into a tight hug. "And I found this," I said, handing her the phone. It was in the car, Jackson's burner. Sierra's eyes widened as she scrolled through the messages. "Oh, Samara, this isn't just about the divorce. This is bigger. There are conversations here about shell corporations, inflated invoices and payoffs. It looks like he's been defrauding his business partners too. This deal with the partners text, it's about a massive payout he was trying to hide." Talia moved fast. Within days, the legal firestorm ignited. She filed for divorce, citing financial misconduct and emotional abuse, and attached all the proof we had. The bank statements Sierra had traced, the recorded conversation with Jackson, and now the damning evidence from the burner phone. The court immediately issued an order freezing all of Jackson's assets, not just the hidden account. The public unraveling began almost immediately. Jackson, the charming, successful businessman, was suddenly facing not only a messy divorce but serious allegations of financial fraud. The news spread like wildfire through our social circles. My mum, Nicole, and Maria were caught in the crossfire. Jackson, in a desperate attempt to control the narrative, started calling everyone, painting me as a vindictive, unstable woman who was trying to ruin his life. But the evidence was too strong. People started asking questions. Maria called me, her voice tight. "Samara, what is going on? People are saying Jackson's being investigated for fraud. My friends are asking if I knew anything. He's telling everyone you're crazy." "He's a liar, Maria," I said, my voice flat. "He's always been a liar. You just didn't want to see it." There was a long silence. I knew she was starting to see it now, the cracks in Jackson's carefully constructed facade. Then an unexpected email landed in my inbox. It was from Sebastian Burton, Jackson's older brother, 39 years old. I barely knew him. He usually kept his distance from Jackson's affairs. The subject line read, "Regarding Jackson." The email was brief. "Samara, I heard what's happening. I think we need to talk. I have more to add that might be useful to your case. Jackson has a long history of this kind of behaviour. Meet me at the coffee shop downtown tomorrow at 10 a.m. Come alone." My heart hammered. Jackson's own brother. What could he possibly know? The next morning, Sebastian looked grim. "Jackson's always been a snake," he started without preamble. "He's always cut corners, always taken advantage, and he's always had people doing his dirty work. He paid someone in your family to watch you, Samara, to keep him informed, to subtly sabotage any plans you made to leave him or pursue your own interests." My blood ran cold. Someone in my family. A new betrayal closer to home than I could have imagined. The courtroom was a sterile, unforgiving space, buzzing with hushed whispers. Jackson sat at the defense table, his usual charm replaced by a strained, pale veneer. He tried to catch my eye, but I stared straight ahead, my gaze fixed on the judge. Talia, sharp and composed, was beside me. Jackson's lawyer opened with a predictable strategy, painting me as a disgruntled, unstable wife seeking revenge. Jackson himself took the stand, attempting to gaslight the court, portraying himself as a victim of my erratic behaviour. "My wife, Samara, has always been prone to dramatic outbursts," he began, his voice smooth, practiced. "She imagined things, created problems where none existed. This Yale letter, a fantasy she concocted to justify her desire to abandon our marriage. But Talia was ready. She presented the recorded conversation from the day I left, playing Jackson's furious threats for the court. His face flushed a deep red as his own voice echoed through the room, promising to ruin me. Then came the bank documents, meticulously organised by Sierra, showing the $147,800 siphoned from our joint account into his private one. The judge's expression hardened. Next, Sebastian Burton took the stand. He looked directly at Jackson, a flicker of something akin to pity but mostly cold resentment in his eyes. He detailed Jackson's history of financial manipulation, his shady dealings, and then the bombshell. Jackson told me he paid a member of Samara's family to keep tabs on her, to discourage her from pursuing any independent ventures, like going back to school. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. My eyes darted to my family sitting in the gallery. Maria looked stunned, her face pale. My mum, Nicole, looked down at her hands. Her shoulders slumped. Talia then called Nicole to the stand. My mum, usually so composed, looked frail. Under Talia's precise questioning, she finally broke. I knew about some of it, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Jackson told me he was moving some funds around for tax purposes. He said it was for our family's future, to keep the peace. He said if I said anything, he'd make sure Samara regretted it. The silence in the room was deafening. She had known. She had chosen to stay silent. Then Talia dropped the final bomb. She presented the evidence from Jackson's burner phone. The texts, the call logs, the detailed plans for defrauding his business partners. It wasn't just marital misconduct, it was large-scale financial fraud. The prosecutor, who had been observing the divorce proceedings, immediately stepped in. Jackson was indicted on the spot, not just for the marital misdeeds, but for multiple counts of financial fraud involving his business. My victory was complete, yet it tasted bittersweet. Jackson, publicly humiliated, was facing severe legal consequences, his empire crumbling. But the cost was immense. Relationships were shattered. Trust, especially with my mom, was irrevocably broken. The truth had set me free, but it had also left a raw, gaping wound. The legal file was surprisingly thin, considering the weight it carried. Divorce, with evidence, I'd labelled it, a final, defiant flourish. It sat on the small desk in my new dorm room at Yale, a constant reminder of the war I'd fought and won. It had been a few months since the courtroom drama, enough time for the dust to settle, for Jackson's public downfall to become undeniable. He was facing serious charges, his reputation in tatters, his business partners suing him. Karma, it seemed, had a very long memory. Walking around campus, seeing students rushing to lectures, their faces alight with curiosity and ambition, I felt a freedom I hadn't known existed. The air here was different, lighter, filled with possibility. No more walking on eggshells, no more stifling condescension. I was Samara, a student, not just Jackson's wife, but the freedom came with its own kind of shadow. The fractured pieces of my family weighed heavily. Maria had called me a few weeks ago, her voice thick with regret. "I'm so sorry, Samara," she'd said, her usual guarded tone gone. "I should have listened. I should have seen it." We talked for a long time, slowly, carefully, trying to piece back together what had been broken. It wasn't easy, but it was a start. My mum, Nicole, was a different story. After her confession in court, the silence between us had become a chasm. She hadn't called, hadn't reached out. The betrayal, the years of her choosing Jackson's narrative over my truth, was a wound that hadn't begun to heal. I knew she was struggling with the social fallout, the judgment from her friends, but I couldn't bring myself to offer comfort. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Sierra, bless her, had been my rock. She helped me pack, drove me up here, and even helped me set up my room. "You deserve this, Sam," she'd said, hugging me fiercely before she left. every single bit of it. I was changed fundamentally. Wiser, yes, but also burdened by the knowledge of what people were capable of how easily trust could be shattered. The innocence I'd clung to, even in my stifling marriage, was gone. The bell rang, pulling me from my thoughts. Time for my first lecture. I picked up my notebook, walked out of the dorm, and joined the stream of students heading towards the lecture hall. No longer asking permission, no longer hiding my dreams. I walked with purpose, confident in my